aren't they? They light your face. They stick a rainbow flag for Pride Week on the beverage, and then they do business in a company that executes gay people, and we're all supposed to like applaud them. The madness of the hypocrisy in which they live. But it's not just about sticking it to those guys, which is a delight every time you get to do it. There is this component where it is about, giving a voice. It sounds super melodramatic, but the thing that always kept me doing this time and time again was some young kid, because before the lawyers came, because they talk a good, fight about how they did it all the pro bono work when they first got here. But they're lawyers, so they know where the money's at. And it's just their nature. I don't hate you for it. It's fine. I helped a lot of you get into this business. Right? Yeah, exactly. But it was people like me. It was journalists. We were exposing the terrible contracts. We were shaming the orgs into doing the right thing and actually paying players what they were owed. Money that was owed for months, sometimes years. Little kids that had been disliked to. And every time I thought I was going to get out and make myself some of this esports money, there'd be another thing in my private secure inbox. Richard, will you look at this contract? And you would look at it, and it would be an absolute disgrace. If I don't answer it, that kid's just stuck with it. So what am I going to do? Just die. You're the one I draw the line on. So I could never do it. And then it scaled up. I broke a story just this year and it's surreal to me. Rick Fox, great guy, right? Like, great ambassador for esports. You all know him, right? Like, super cool dude. Starts his own esports organization, was part of that first big spearhead of big VC money coming in, but he went one better because he was going on all the talk shows, like, what's that stupid one, The View or whatever, Had to endure listening to them to fight the good fight for all of us, for every esports fan in this room. And it's real. It's not bullshit with him. And then, I found out that he was being racially abused by one of his own shareholders internally in his company, and he couldn't do anything about it. Imagine that. Imagine being Rick Fox, and you can't do a goddamn thing about a shareholder racially abusing you, and no one on the board is going to help you out. So it's on me, right? Like, I publicized it. Of course I did. Rick was too coy. Didn't want to give me any comment. I've done follow-up stories, and this guy who did it, he's every bit of piece of shit you think he would be. He's got some crazy stuff in his past, which I'm totally on, by the way, guys. So watch this space. But imagine being able to help out someone as powerful in your eyes as Rick Fox. That's the juice. That's why I do it.
I'll add as well, because obviously, like, jokes aside, obviously, like, the historical component has been very important for me a long time. And I just took that from my own interests elsewhere. If I watched the NBA, I wanted to know what were players in the 80s like? How does this guy match up against that guy? And I have to tell you, there was a long time in esports. Pro players didn't even care about that. Like, my old joke used to be, trying to get a pro player to get on board with that sort of content was like being a guy who's a foot fetishist, waiting outside a model's shoot and being like, can I just get a few shots of your feet? And they're like, can someone remove this guy, please? I'm kind of repulsed by
that. Is a super specific example, Dunk, and I just want to say...
crossing of the worlds. Yeah. Do what you love. So anyway, no, the point is, I actually wanted to care about, how does this player from this era stack up against this other one? And I can tell you, even though oftentimes a pro player now still thinks it's just a cool job and he just plays this game because he's good at it, and sometimes they don't want, by the way, a historical component because it puts pressure on them. They don't want to feel like they have to deliver in that way. But I tell you what, when they've been retired like 5 years and you contact that guy to do the interview, you should see the amount of gratitude they have when they know that, like, the reason people remember their name is you wrote the stories about them. You reference them now. When a great player accomplishes a feat now, you don't say he's the greatest ever. You say, let's compare him to the old players. And to tell you what, another thing those pro players love now is they love it when someone fights for the old guys. When someone doesn't just say everyone now is the best, and it was always an uphill chart like that. No, a guy in the 1970s in basketball obviously could have been the best player ever, no matter what the media spin tells you, because think about how the media treats sports. Of course LeBron's the best player. Oh no, wait a second, it's actually Kawhi Leonard now. Sorry, my mistake. It's like all of a sudden Michael Jordan's gone, the players from the 70s are gone. Someone has to be there to kind of keep that alive and keep people realizing history is alive in the present moment as well.
And also, I mean, Duncan, you really created an entire sort of esports genre of content that I myself make in terms of these unscripted, long-form content. You and I together developed, a long-form esports podcast, which sort of became like the definitive model of podcasts across other games. And
Thanks,
so,
Monty.
Yeah, you're welcome. But it's like so many people have followed Thorin's lead and shown that there is a real thirst for in-depth content for fans, and that's all Thorin's doing, really.
So, Richard, going back to the Rick Fox story, when you broke it, initially it was incredibly hard to even read it due to your relationship with Reddit. How do platforms like Reddit and Twitter affect journalism space?
How much time have you got?
Yeah.
That should be good.
No. Don't worry. I'll keep this one real brief. I will just add, in case this ever gets out, it does make me laugh a little bit that Alexis Ohanian is investing in esports now, and he wants to make money while simultaneously running a platform that's responsible for more censorship of journalists than anything out there. So fix that. But yeah, I mean, so why is it hard? I mean, look, the type of fights I pick, and listen, I'm a pit bull. I'm not a nice guy a lot of the time, because you can't be. If someone's telling me I'm wrong and I know I'm right, I have to tell them a million times. I have to tire them out. So yeah, you have to be a bit of a prick sometimes. It just is what it is, Like, don't want to win a popularity award. I want to fix the problem I'm approaching. So yeah, with the Reddit situation, I got banned. I'm depersoned. I'm depersoned from a platform that actually has boards dedicated to pedophilia and white supremacy. I mean, I don't know how you end up being the one guy they don't even reply to my emails. They don't reply to my legal team's emails. It's insane. And it's all over the types of stories I write and the fact that I won't let volunteer janitors on a website tell me what I can and can't write about. Never going to do it. So platforms like that, like Duncan alluded to it in his speech earlier, that Reddit was a good thing. Not in my mind, because it killed off all the traditional websites. Reddit played a huge part in the downfall of on-gamers when it got banned from that because its business model was kind of built around it. And the problem with Reddit is it just has this sort of extra tier of editorial input from strangers. Again, I don't know how many people write here in the audience or aspiring journalists or whatever. Try and imagine a situation where your editor says to you, write this story, you write the story, you give it to your editor, the editor approves it, you publish it, it goes on Reddit, and then some pleb who just is a mod on a website, like just because he volunteered, he was just there on Monday, says, I don't like that article, no one can read it, deleted, gone, Thanos. Right? Well, wait a minute, how does this work? Like, what is this insanity? Why are we signing off on that? And the problem with Reddit is the mods. It's got a system that relies on human moderation. Well, humans suck.
Well, they're also, like, it's not even human sucking. These are people who
it
are
is
not
that, too.
Sure, but it's like, they're not even qualified necessarily to do this kind of work
And they
or to
don't
make...
get paid.
And they don't
Their
get
only
paid.
reason is to meddle.
And literally, the way you get, control of a new esports subreddit is like, are you the fastest one there when the game is announced? And you are literally squatting on it, and no one can get you out of that position.
Nope.
It's completely unreasonable.
So Reddit's the worst. Reddit's the most censorious platform out there. I mean, in Invin, I know you're going to talk about it in a sec. Like, they got their own problems with that. I mean, but social media in general, it's as much of a problem as it can be a benefit, a boon, right? Because on the one hand, I've got my platform now. I can put my stuff out on my platform now that I have spent 15 years meticulously building my platform and brand. But if I hadn't done all of that, it's at the whim of, it's the tyranny of the majority, right? Like, I mean, the way my story gets spun or the bits that get took, the bits people quote, once it's on the internet, it's out of your hands. And a lot of times you'll find... attached to a story by me, people saying, it's got to be a lie. 100% accuracy record across 15 years, but this one time, is the time I trade in all my chips and tell lies. And people believe it, and people buy it, and people can downvote it. I never understood that, like the mouse in the maze, like, ooh, get the cheese and say what everyone else is thinking. Brilliant. That's a good system for discussion. It's a mess. Social media is a mess. It's a nightmare, and it makes journalism, it's good for discovery, but nothing else.
Yeah,
Actually,
and
sorry.
so just to touch more on the Reddit issue, because you're right. Invent has also seen its fair share of problems with Reddit. Currently in the League of Legends subreddit, Invent Global is domain banned. Like we just are. Yeah, and it's actually quite comical because the people on that subreddit, like, if there is a thread that says something like, hey, like, why isn't this interview here? Like, this is literally an exclusive interview with Faker. Or like, hey, why isn't this, why isn't this here? Why isn't this here? I mean, those just get squashed. Those just get removed. So there is a point in which I don't think Reddit, maybe they expected that they would one day become the leading like aggregate for everything, but it is very clear that like journalism should not belong on Reddit, because these are the things that people want to hear, they want to see. But there is that layer. There's the layer of there's a group of people who knows, maybe they're just doing their own job, but their job is something completely different than the tenets of trying to tell the truth. Their job is whatever culture or rule base that this Reddit, exists.
I had mods demand I out sources to them before they would approve stories. Think about like the grotesque, unethical conundrum of that, right? So I might get fired from my job because my employer doesn't get page hits, and the only way we can prevent that happening is if I out a source and go against the absolute sworn ethical duty of a journalist. Well, I like this system. This is very fair. This is reasonable.
And it actually even gets weirder, because say that Richard writes something and it's great, right? Someone could literally write an article about everything Richard just reported, and then they're now encouraged to not cite Richard. They're encouraged to not say that he wrote it, because if they include that, this is referring to Lewis, they can't post it on Reddit. That will get removed from the subreddit.
Yeah, there's me and Candyman are the two names you can't say, and then we turn up and kill you, apparently.
So it's problematic for journalism. It's a great thing for sharing and exploring, and if you want to find your niche, like topics, sure, I can talk about narwhals or whatever on a subreddit, but it's not, it really is quite problematic.
And actually, something Richard touched on earlier is key to the whole social media platform Reddit issue, which is when I worked for a site on Gamers that got content banned. One of the reasons we got banned was there was actually someone involved in the site, just literally on their own, quite high up, who was trying to vote manipulate, right? And the problem is that fed into the view that admins of Reddit, the people who run Reddit, not the mods, actually had, which is they thought we are just a big content machine, right? Random people put small things or things they found from other people's into our engine. It gets driven up or down based on ups and votes and downvotes. They didn't understand that there could be a content creator who actually did great work, and that's what made it rise. So, no, believe it or not, when they saw one person had done this vote manipulation, they literally told us, it's obvious everyone at your company must be doing it. We were like, but why though? And they said, how do you get that many views otherwise? I said, well, it's esports. We've worked in esports our whole lives. We know what people want, how to deliver it to them, etc. And so a part of that, if you notice, is not only do they not understand what you're doing, but if you're too big a voice, you will absolutely get hit with the rule book all the time. Just look at the bigger world of, for example, of YouTube, right? I can't even say the name of some of the people who are the big YouTubers right now, because that will immediately politically label you some sort of a right-wing person at this point in time, because why have the big YouTubers been attacked? Some of them are literally making fun games about videos. They're not even doing videos about politics. But think about it, right? Why is the legacy media, the dying legacy media with less and less hits, less and less ad revenue, less and less monetization, why are they going to sit back and let some kid who has way more reach than them have all of his say broadcast to the world when they're the gatekeepers? They're the ones who decide what you say. And so even if it isn't always the platform itself, if it's not the platform, and there's plenty of corrupt people in those ones that want to silence you, it'll be the media will put the pressure on the platform and basically play blackmail about how many bad stories should we write about your YouTube until you ban this guy, until you demonetize him.
What we're seeing is, right, it used to be the legacy media, you're right, they used to come and try and take down all this new stuff. Now it's the new media, now it's social media, right? You got Facebook deciding what you can and can't post, apropos of nothing. Twitter are doing it. Twitter just removed a bunch of Chinese activists just before the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. Whoopsie, we didn't mean to do that. So, yeah, I mean, you're asking me what social media are actually doing for journalism. Turns out not a lot right now in 2019. Actually, it's a big problem.
Then what's the future for esports journalism? What does the ideal future look like? Because it seems pretty grim from what you guys have been saying.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, I realize we should do some positive stuff, shouldn't we? Right, sorry. I have a tendency, this is why I don't do many panels. I get one every 5 years.
So if I would try to be the positive, because I know we talked about the ugly, I talked about the bad, we kind of mentioned something.
Yeah, we should do some good, you're right.
Yeah, I actually do think that for every single social media that I really like the whole concept of adding in another editor that just doesn't care, right? So for every single social media that makes it actively hard to get content that people like, there's social medias that give the power back to the individual journalist, right? There are social medias like Twitter, where if you spend enough time and if you build enough of an audience, well, you don't actually need anyone else's platform. You don't actually need anyone else's. You could write like a Medium article, and if it's the truth, well, there you go. No one's going to stop you for that, right? So I do think that there are some of the shining examples of people being able to make their own brand, and I think that fans of esports know how to find the people that like, all right, I like this writer, or this writer I really can trust. And that doesn't have to go through any of the like rigmarole of trying to impress a bunch of mods or trying to make sure your title is something that's upvotable, right? Because like, are you trying to make a like true headline or one that won't get downvoted to oblivion, right? So yeah, I do think that there are some positives, and I'd say Twitter is probably one of them.
I think at least like one of the problems that esports has is that it does have a generally young audience, which I do think contributes to the factor that people conflate a investigative journalism and those kind of reports with their personal like of a person, or if it's against a game that they like, they react very negatively towards it. So obviously, plebs are always going to do that to some degree, but I think that given 5 to 10 more years, as the audience gets older, more wizened, has more perspective, and they've seen enough of these stories across games, that they will react in a more favorable way towards the journalist and believe them.
I think we got to start looking at what's going on, because I thought for a long time Twitch could be part of the solution, and then Amazon bought them. So, listen, I love you Twitch guys in the audience. I know there's a couple up there. But you're owned by a huge corporation right now that also owns its own news outlets. So let's not put too much hope on that. But I think one of the things that we need is we need platforms that can legitimately monetize this type of content. It doesn't have to be vast amounts of money. It doesn't have to be huge amounts of big YouTuber kind of money. Because the problem we've got is the existing platforms that have been super popular they've been forced. They got too in the spotlight. You got Wall Street Journal articles that are forcing YouTube to take ads off certain type of content. All my stuff gets demonetized because I talk about Counter-Strike, and Counter-Strike is a game with guns, and then I have to appeal it, and then it gets lifted on appeal. But by that point, I make nothing, so I couldn't even be an independent journalist and just put it on YouTube. So we need platforms that are going to put some, give people the opportunity. I hear monetization's coming to Medium. I think that could be big for a lot of up-and-coming esports journalists in the scene. I think that could be positive. But that's what we need, It's like, I hear Caffeine are throwing money around left, right, and center right now, this other streaming platform. Well, take some of that money, and instead of throwing it at streamers to play video games and the content's boring and stale, create a news division. See what happens. Give, maybe an unemployed investigative journalist a job for lots of money. You just spitballing ideas,
Well, do you have any in mind? I mean, could you give any recommendations?
None that are employable, evidently. No, but the reality is, I've never even seen that. Like, why doesn't Twitch have its own news division? Isn't that weird to you, right? That Twitch, they have all this stuff, they got all this money. They waste a lot of it if we're being real. So why not have a news division? And again, maybe there's a guy out there that could head that up. Just So this is what I mean. I think the future is we need newer platforms with solid monetization models that can't be messed with from legacy media and all that. So journalists can basically go in, and they don't need an employer to begin with. If they do the work, it can find an audience, and then over time they can maybe graduate towards something a bit more senior.
Yeah, for me, the key thing is it's the entire industry and media in general needs monetization. Like, the whole thing is, one of the stupidest things anyone ever told me back in the day was they said, oh, well, when esports gets big, you won't be around. It'll be some guy who was a BBC presenter for the, TV show host. It'll be some guy who works in mainstream journalism. It won't be. I can tell you that right now, because if you look at it, right, if you get a mainstream publication and they're the one reporting on esports, they're the one reporting the stories, they don't know what they're talking about. They have the journalistic skills in theory nowadays, but they don't have any of the background. Like, the people you actually need are the people who've been in the industry a long time. They're the people who can tell the stories. Because here's the thing, until you are selling to the mainstream, and we're not at the moment, you're selling to the fans of esports. The fans of esports can spot a fake in that sense. They know when it's legit. They know when you know what you're talking about, and they know when you're blowing smoke up there, you know what. So I would say in this particular scenario, yeah, I even think an obvious thing you could do is think of all the people, some of them in this audience, who love going out there in those boardrooms, spinning a story about how esports is going to be massive, $1 trillion industry, bigger than movies, etc. Well, where's all the content that's going to keep people watching when the tournament isn't on, mate? It's not going to be a Wall Street Times article of like, did you know esports is a thing? No one's going to read that 15 times between the next Overwatch League match. Someone's going to need to watch someone who could give you real content, who can have punditry. We can have documentaries about these things. And who is better suited to do that than the people who've been in esports? They're the journeymen. They've been there the whole time. So I don't know how we're going to, like I said in my talk, there's a disconnect between the big companies and the brands that have been in esports that aren't big endemic brands, but we have to marry that some way. I'm not sure how it's done yet. Like, that's why I implied people in the industry should be looking at this. The patronage they could give, it would have to be through a separate company, so they wouldn't like themselves take editorial control, etc. If you wrote about their team, think about their patronage could provide the coverage, which then themselves lets them sell that to the person they want to invest. It can be an actually symbiotic relationship. But like I say, they're going to have to do it in a way where it's patronage, where they don't literally just take the comment and say, but don't write about my team, because then it won't work. It has to have an independence. It cannot just be, we can't just become part of the establishment.
And it seems like we're chasing a unicorn because platforms want hits, and all the pieces that you guys do require so much work, so much quality, and low quality content can generate hits and can be much easier to put out. So I am worried for the future.
I mean, the other problem is like, I mean, I know that, you know, people here like on this panel are sitting on stories that literally no platform will publish because they are too hot. Like, very, you know, like really, really bad things. And unfortunately, there's nobody out there willing to take the risk.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, blacklisting is real. Not to be too...
How many blacklists you been on?
Scale.
No, real talk.
Those are rookie numbers, baby. You've got to pump those up.
Yo, I'm telling you, I've been on some good ones. Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much every NA team at one point, every NA org. I think I had, I mean, definitely Activision Blizzard now, right?
In esports, you're nobody till you've been on person.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
You've been made nobody again.
So, but blacklist is definitely real. You're not wrong.
I think we've gone back to the ugly or gone
Sorry,
back to
dude.
the bad.
Positive. No, but the positive thing is a lot of those blacklists did get rescinded. They figure out they actually do need the journalists. So, you know,
Yes.
I won that one. Okay, good. To quote Duncan.
The cycle is if you do it enough, eventually they'll like you again because you'll start ragging on one of their competitors.
You know, I had a high-level Blizzard employee say that to me once. We were on a train going to an event. It was a DreamHack, I think, and all the Blizzard crew were there. And they used to love me at Blizzard. I mean, this is the wild thing. They used to always send me a copy of the latest game, whether I played it or not. And I was sat there, and all the executives were there. And they leaned over, and he said, "We just want to thank you so much for banging on Riot Games all the time like you do." And I went, yeah, you know, there's a little bit of personal pleasure in that. You do realize as soon as it's your turn, it's your turn, you know? And then the train went quiet, so. Yeah. And it turned out it was their turn.
Still is.
Yeah, and it will be for some time.
Gentlemen, it was great having you. We're almost close to end time. Can
Yeah.
I grab final thoughts from every single one of you before we end?
Yeah, just on this whole topic. If you're a PR person or if you would work in one of these game developer, you can do a lot of good if you convince everyone else that we need to let critical people write about our game. We need to invite critical people to our events. We need to give these critical young people a chance to get into these exclusive things, because if they're not first, they don't get any views, and if they don't get any views, they can't get a job.
Yeah, I would just say it's very important for the fans and people in this industry to support quality journalism, even if it exposes ugly truths. And that's something that we all have to collectively agree on, because it's one of the only ways that we can improve quality across the industry, which is, I think, something we all want.
Yeah, I would echo actually what Monty said there, but I'd add in what he said earlier. This is the thing. Yes, you might not like that the story, the sentiment is something messed up happened in the team you support with the player you like. So your first reaction is, I don't want it to be true. I'm in denial. But if you then attack the person, well, what happens when it's actually the person who's the player you support who's getting screwed? What, should we not write about the org that's screwing him now? Should we not do that because there's a fan of the org? Of course not. So again, even if just support it passively, just chill, just don't go too crazy. And I'd say similarly to the orgs out there, like Richard's saying, listen, you're going to get your turn and it's going to be bad. You're going to go through the fire if you've done the things you've done, because as I alluded to earlier, there are no company values. The values is the value of that stock. That's about all there is. So I'd say if you're those companies, I think what you have to look at is, just shut up when it's your turn. Don't lie. Don't go out of your way to be like, no, this isn't true. He's lying, etc. Because you want someone to take down your competitor when he's the one screwing everyone and you're not doing it right, and he's getting the competitive advantage. So basically, in most cases, to pretty much everyone, just shut up. Everyone shut up.
And yeah, just quickly, if anyone is thinking about moving into esports journalism, I know I've made it sound like it absolutely sucks, which wasn't my intention. But look, at the end of the day, like I said right at the top of the thing about if you put more importance on the esports than you do on the journalism, shit, man, there's like a million things you could do. You're obviously not a journalist. You'll find yourself compromised at some point. And you won't enjoy that feeling. You won't enjoy that feeling that, like Duncan said, going to the party and being in the room with the person that did the bad thing and you know about it, and now you're dirty and complicit. If you want to do it, you got to do it right and go all the way. And whatever anyone tells you, they cannot kick you out of this. They'll try, but they can't. It's too big. They've been trying to do it to me for 15 years, still here, still annoying people, so you can do it too. And if you want to, make sure you do.
All right, thank you guys so much for coming.